Today we see an increasing number of fifth-generation fighters being developed. Previously, we have looked at South Korea's KF-21, Turkey's TF Khan, and India's HAL AMCA. These aircraft draw much of their inspiration from the multi-role F-35. When people talk of fifth-gen aircraft, they are usually thinking of air superiority fighters. Today there are 3 such designs, each representing one of the 3 major military powers: the US with the F-22, China with the J-20, and Russia with the Su-57. We don't hear about these as much today, as the focus has shifted more toward multi-role aircraft. There was, however, another design from a decade ago. It has been suggested that this design would have joined the other 3, competing as a true air superiority fighter. But this design has largely been forgotten, despite there being a very real possibility that it is still a viable option. That aircraft is the Shenyang J-31. The story of this aircraft dates to the early 2000s. However, as with most military projects in China, the specifics are kept under wraps. During the 1990s, China had sought to initiate its own fifth-generation fighter program. In 2002, it was publicly revealed that a next-generation fighter competition would be held by the People's Liberation Army Air Force. In the West, this was known as the JXX program. The little information available about the program became known to Westerners through informed outlets such as Jane's. This included images of supposed concepts and details surrounding what the PLA Air Force desired in their next-generation fighter. It was assumed that the 3 primary competitors would be Chengdu Aircraft Corporation, which had already designed the native JF-17, Xi'an Aircraft Industrial Corporation, responsible for assembling several of China's medium bombers like the H-6 and JH-7, and Shenyang Aircraft Corporation, arguably the most experienced military aircraft manufacturer in China. By 2008, the PLA had revealed that a concept from Chengdu had been chosen, and that further research and development would follow. By 2011, the first working concept of the aircraft took flight. It would become known as the J-20 Mighty Dragon, and from then until now it has undergone major upgrades, entering into service in 2017 with plans to implement a 2-seater multi-role variant. It was reported that during 2008, Shenyang had developed a larger 5th-generation design to rival the J-20, which had been rejected. Shenyang turned to self-funding, with the goal of securing foreign investors to develop a working export 5th-generation fighter. By 2011, reports were circulating that a working concept was completed, referred to online as the F-60. In 2012, a scale model of the aircraft was revealed. Known as the J-31 or FC-31, it resembled something between an F-35 and an F-22. Later that same year, in October 2012, the aircraft would take its maiden flight, hidden from public scrutiny. The first public reveal of the working aircraft would occur in 2014. Shenyang announced that the project was a private concept, with no military input. While the initial display resulted in mixed reactions due to a variety of potential shortcomings, in 2015, a revised version of the design would fly at the Dubai Air Show. Over the following years, many reports would circulate about the state of the aircraft. Some claimed the program was over, others that the aircraft was still being pitched to potential buyers as a competitor to the F-35. In 2018, state media sources in China revealed that both the Navy and Air Force were scouting for a newer version of the aircraft, and in 2020, further claims began to circulate, indicating that a third version of the aircraft was perhaps complete. During this period, the project began to receive government funding. This third concept would be heavily revised, with a better airframe, avionics, redesigned jet nozzles, and a lowered radar cross-section. This unofficially became known as the J-35. As mentioned earlier, it appeared that the J-31 was initially intended to be an air superiority fighter dedicated to that role. However, things seem to have changed. It was claimed by one of the designers that the aircraft may be exported as a competitor to the F-35. If this is true, the design would be more focused on strike capabilities over general air-to-air superiority. In 2021, the aircraft would appear for the public once again, this time in a proper paint scheme, in what appeared to be a naval configuration. It was claimed that this aircraft was not the third variant from 2020, but a carrier-ready derivative of the second variant from 2015. This carrier-based derivative is almost certainly designed to operate from the Type 3 carrier, which uses an electromagnetic catapult system. So how capable is this aircraft? As with all fifth-generation designs, it seems nothing can be confirmed or denied, as deliberately vague specifications are released to the public. Nevertheless, some assumptions can be made based on what information is available. As many have noted, the first flights in 2014 show an aircraft clearly in its early stages. Most obviously, the aircraft's engines appeared somewhat inefficient, with unburnt fuel producing smoke trails in much the same way that older US and Russian engines would. Some claimed the first prototype was running on Russian Klimov RD-93s, although it is more likely that it was using domestically built WS-13 engines. It was also noted by some online that the aircraft in its initial displays appeared to be running in afterburner quite a lot, suggesting a possible lack of aerodynamic efficiency, although this is pure speculation. It is important to remember that contextually, these tests occurred a decade ago, and during this period, China was still struggling to produce domestic jet engines for combat aircraft. In our other 5th gen videos, we note how this is currently a problem for India, South Korea and Turkey, who are all developing their own 5th generation designs as well. However, in recent years, reports have circulated indicating that Chinese designers may have cracked the code, as in some cases, they are now replacing tested and reliable Russian engines in their Sukhoi-based designs, such as the J-11 and J-15, with native engines. Shenyang is responsible for this military endeavor, so it is not a stretch to assume that similar technology would be available for their private ventures. Another important consideration is funding. Given that the aircraft likely entered conceptualization after 2008 and was privately funded, the initial prototype was produced in less than 4 years, given its 2012 maiden flight. For this reason, perhaps some lenience can be given to the initial design, given the rapid concept and development period. With time and government funding, far more manpower and ability can obviously be redirected towards the project. And the final consideration is context. As we have previously looked at South Korea, Turkey and India's aeronautical industries, they seem to be chugging along at a steady pace. However, China is completely different. With a huge economy and massive investments into research and development, there is no telling where their rapidly developing aeronautical sector will be in a decade. China's production capabilities grow and improve by the day, both militarily and in the commercial public sectors. Over the years, we have seen Chinese products mature from poor rip-offs to indistinguishable copies to designs which actually outperform their competition in terms of quality, price, and design functionality. This level of improvement must also be occurring in the aeronautical sector. If the Chinese missile programs are anything to go by, it would be fair to assume that the J-31 is now vastly improved over the 2014 version. On this point, it is also important to note that there is a possibility that the J-31 may use technology based on still classified F-35 technology. This is not a baseless claim. In 2009, the Joint Strike Fighter program database was breached and terabytes of data stolen. The data heist is said to have been done by experts originating from China. Hypothetically, the J-31 could be developed into a highly capable aircraft. While many are quick to cast doubts on designs of Chinese origin, there is evidence suggesting Shenyang Aircraft Corporation is well up for the task. Unlike many contemporary aircraft corporations around the globe, Shenyang has been around since the Korean War. They have designed several native aircraft, but what is arguably more important to take into account is their history of producing license-built Russian aircraft. This culminated in their controversial Sukhoi upgrade programs, which led to several intellectual property violations in 2004. This first controversial move was important. In 1996, Shenyang had received rights to manufacture 200 Su-27 UBKs under license. These were to be delivered as kits from the Komsomolsk-on-Amur aircraft plant, which for context is an aircraft plant known for their exceptional quality Sukhoi builds, leading production of the Su-35 and Su-57. Initially in 1998, Komsomolsk-on-Amur reported that the first batch of Chinese Su-27 builds were poor, and that their own staff would have to come in and help them rebuild. By 2003, however, the Russians reported Shenyang was now capable of production at a very high level, and that they were integrating locally produced airframe parts. These first aircraft, known as the J-11A, were okay, but the Chinese desired further upgrades. In 2004, Shenyang developed the J-11B, which was heavily reliant on domestic airframe parts, as well as domestically improved subsystems, which broke the co-production agreement. Chinese domestic ability was rapidly improving, and by 2011, it was reported that the J-11Bs were using up to 90% domestically produced parts, and that several variations, including two-seater models and naval models, were being produced. Shenyang then produced other domestic models matching different variants of the flanker, including the J-15, a match for the Navy's Su-33, and the J-16, an air superiority aircraft seemingly similar to the Su-35 or Su-30M. It's worth noting that the Shenyang aircraft may outperform their flanker equivalents in terms of onboard systems and other avionic upgrades. Given that China appears to have mastered the art of reverse engineering technology in such a way that allows them to improve upon the original designs, it's no surprise that they can leap ahead. Now let us take a look at the claimed specifications of the J-31. The best place to start is with stealth capabilities. Given that this is a fifth-generation design, this will arguably be the most important consideration should it ever enter service. Unlike the J-20, reports claim that the J-31 is not built around materials designed for lowered radar image, but rather relies on a stealth-designed coating to reduce reflectivity. With redesigned engine nozzles and new WS-19 engines, officials on the project have said the aircraft has a small signature in both the Ku band and L band frequencies. But again, none of this will really be confirmed until it is in a scenario which puts its stealth attributes to the test. In terms of armament, the aircraft is rated for 18,000 pounds of stores, including 4,400 pounds internally. Not a bad payload capacity. For reference, the F-35 is also claimed to have 18,000 pounds total capacity. Internally, it is also similar to the F-35, which has a slightly higher internal payload capacity of 5,700 pounds. When it comes to top speed, the aircraft is said to reach Mach 1.8, slightly faster than the F-35. It is assumed this would include supercruise capabilities, which are found in basically all fifth-generation fighter designs. It also boasts a service ceiling of just over 50,000 feet, again roughly the same as the F-35. The major difference is range. The J-31 is said to travel 1,200 kilometers on internal fuel, whilst Lockheed claims that the F-35 can travel 1,200 miles, or almost 2,000 kilometers. This range difference, if the J-31 really is being set up as an F-35 competitor, is significant. Consider that if the two aircraft go head-to-head, it will most likely be over the seas of East Asia. While areas like the South China Sea can be navigated by aircraft with small fuel stores thanks to the abundance of island bases. In a battle scenario, a longer strike range is the strategic advantage, having assets, like carriers or bases, within strike range of enemy targets without the enemy being able to reciprocate. And range is even more important in the Pacific or Indian Oceans. These are the theatres where Asian and Western forces would likely contend, just as they did in World War II. Of course, range can be extended through air refueling, but loitering tankers usually require fighter escorts, and this usually means a carrier group closer to the action. The J-31 was initially an air superiority fighter, privately funded by a capable and forward-thinking company. Today, it's a state project with multi-role ambitions. Its specifications appear to closely match those of the F-35. Given China's increased technical abilities in recent years, it is not unreasonable to see the J-31 competing with Western and Russian aircraft on a near equal footing. Backed by the second largest economy in the world and the largest in terms of economic output, the J-31 is riding on the crest of a rapidly maturing Chinese aeronautical industry. Only time will tell how capable the J-31 and other Chinese fifth-generation designs will prove to be.